She tried to humiliate him in front of 200 students. But what happened next made the entire room question everything they thought they knew. There are moments in life that define us. Moments when you're thrown into the fire, not to see you burn, but to see whether you'll rise like a phoenix. In a classroom ruled by fear, in front of a professor feared more than the subject itself, a quiet student did the unthinkable. He challenged her, not with arrogance, not with ego, but with undeniable brilliance. What began as an act of public humiliation would transform into one of the most unexpected intellectual revolutions this university had ever seen. If you've ever felt underestimated, if you've ever wanted to prove to the world what you're truly capable of, this story is for you. Before we begin, help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers by clicking subscribe and turning on the bell. It means the world to us and helps us bring you more stories that inspire, challenge, and ignite the fire in your soul. Let's dive in. The lecture hall at Westford State University was massive. The kind of place that swallowed sound and made even confident voices tremble. It was early fall, and the crisp chill outside hadn't yet pierced the atmosphere inside, where 200 students whispered nervously, shuffling their notes and unlocking laptops. Tuesday mornings meant only one thing: Dr. Evelyn Marchand's Advanced Theoretical Mathematics. A class so brutal, upperclassmen whispered its name like a ghost story. And then she walked in. Dr. Marchand didn't need to speak to command attention. Her presence did it for her. Tall, impeccably dressed, icy calm. She wore her authority like armor, sharp-lined suits, dark-rimmed glasses, and a gaze that made time slow down. She didn't just teach math, she dissected it. And if you dared to get in the way, she'd dissect you too. She had a reputation for brilliance, but also for breaking students who dared challenge her logic. Failure in her class wasn't a possibility, it was a design. On that morning, however, something was different, because sitting halfway up in the middle row, quiet, hoodie-clad, expression unreadable, was Julian Hale. He had transferred from another campus just last semester. Rarely spoke, never raised his hand. But there was something about him that didn't fit the mold, something unreadable, like a locked equation waiting to be solved. Dr. Marchand didn't notice him at first. Why would she? She snapped a piece of chalk between her fingers, turned to the board, and declared, "Today we explore Laplace transforms. Pay attention, this will separate those who belong here from those who should consider another major." Laughter, forced and nervous, rippled through the rows. As she wrote long looping equations in neat, inhumanly perfect script, students scribbled in panic. Except Julian. He watched quietly, not arrogant, not disengaged, but focused in a way that felt unnatural. Then it happened. She made a mistake, not a big one, subtle, almost invisible. But to the trained eye, it bent the logic of the entire proof. No one noticed. No one except him. Julian tilted his head. He could have let it go, but something inside him twisted. It wasn't about pride. It was about truth. Julian hesitated, just for a second. He glanced around. Everyone was frantically scribbling notes, some nodding as if they understood, others staring blankly. No one had seen it. Still, he remained silent. Until, "Excuse me, Dr. Marchand." A soft voice spoke from the front row. A student, nervous, barely audible, raised her hand. "I think there might be a mistake in the second line." The room froze. Pens stopped. Laptops paused. Dr. Marchand turned slowly. "A mistake?" She echoed the word like it was toxic. She turned back to the board, scanning it. Then she smirked. "There's no mistake." Her tone was final, like a gavel striking a courtroom bench. The student wilted into her seat. No more questions. Julian clenched his jaw. The arrogance, the dismissal. It stirred something inside him he hadn't felt in a long time. He raised his hand. Silence again. "Actually, there is an error," he said, calm, precise, no emotion. Murmurs rippled through the room. Heads turned. Dr. Marchand's gaze snapped to him, eyes narrowing. For a heartbeat, the room held its breath. "Enlighten us, Mr. Hale. Julian Hale." He stood, not to show off, but because something about sitting felt wrong. In the second step, the transformation was applied incorrectly. The coefficient shouldn't carry over that way. The final solution wouldn't hold. Dr. Marchand stared at him. Not blinking, not smiling, only silence. Then, finally, "Come show us, Mr. Hale." Julian walked down the aisle. The sound of his steps echoed louder than they should have. He took the chalk from her hand, gently, as if it might break. He erased a portion of the board. The air felt electric. With deliberate strokes, he rewrote the equation, slow, steady, confident. His voice was calm as he spoke. "The issue lies here. The integral changes because the limits no longer apply once you extract this term. But if you restructure it like this, the original conditions are preserved." No one spoke. The chalk was the only sound. When he finished, he set it down and stepped back. Dr. Marchand turned to the board. Her eyes moved line by line. Then, with a barely perceptible tightening of the jaw, she gave the smallest of nods. "Fine. You corrected it. Congratulations. No praise, no warmth." But it wasn't needed. Julian returned to his seat. The whispers began immediately. For the first time since the semester started, he wasn't invisible. He was undeniable. Dr. Marchand stood still, her expression unreadable. For a moment, Julian thought it was over, that she would move on, resume the lecture, let the mistake fade into memory. But instead, she picked up the chalk again. Her lips curled into a cold smile, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Since Mr. Hale seems to have such a sharp eye today," she said, turning back to the board, "let's give him something a little more challenging." She began writing. This time, the equation wasn't a continuation of the lecture. It sprawled across the board like a maze, nested integrals, non-linear transformations, tricky limit conditions. Gasps echoed through the lecture hall. It was nothing short of brutal. "Solve this," she said, stepping aside. Julian blinked. That equation wasn't meant for undergraduates. This was graduate level, maybe even beyond. She wasn't testing him. She was setting him up to fail. A few students exchanged glances. Some leaned forward, eager to watch him falter. Others looked away, uncomfortable. Julian stood exhaling slowly. He could walk away. He had already proven himself. But something inside him flared. This wasn't about just math anymore. It was about standing firm when someone tries to break you down. He walked to the board. The room held its breath again. He didn't rush. He didn't pause. One by one, he began breaking down the equation, line by line, symbol by symbol. His hand moved with confidence, not arrogance, but precision, like someone who'd seen chaos before and learned how to bring order to it. Halfway through, the laughter stopped. The smug grins vanished. Even Dr. Marchand's eyes narrowed, not in amusement, but in disbelief. Julian paused only once. He looked over his shoulder and asked, "Do you want the solution in terms of exponentials or trigonometric functions?" She didn't respond. He turned back and continued. "Finished. Box the answer. Put the chalk down." Silence. Not a breath, not a sound. He turned to face the room, his face calm, unreadable. Dr. Marchand stepped forward, scanned the board, her hands clasped behind her back. She read slowly, every line, every step. She found no mistakes, none. "Lucky guess," she muttered, her tone clipped. Julian tilted his head. "Not a guess," he replied simply. "Just math." Laughter this time, nervous, half-suppressed, from the class. But not at him. She stared at him, and something shifted, a crack, barely visible, in her facade of absolute control. She looked away. "Sit down, Mr. Hale." And he did. But the air had changed. Everyone felt it. She hadn't won. Julian barely had time to sit down. Before he could even process what just happened, Dr. Marchand turned to face the class. Her tone cool, her posture straighter than ever. "Since Mr. Hale seems particularly confident today," she said with a thin smile, "perhaps he'd be willing to raise the stakes." The room tensed. No one dared whisper. "I'd like to issue a challenge," she continued. "Something we normally reserve for graduate-level competitors. A spot in the Winter Mathematics Symposium." A few students gasped. The Symposium. An elite contest where the best minds, doctoral students, researchers, even visiting scholars, competed to solve some of the most difficult problems in academia. Winning it wasn't just rare, it was legendary. Julian's eyes narrowed slightly. "I thought undergrads weren't eligible," he said, his voice steady. "They're not," she replied, "unless invited by faculty." And then she smiled, sharp, deliberate. "I'm inviting you." The trap was clear. If he said no, he'd look like a coward. If he said yes, she was betting he'd fail publicly and thoroughly. It wasn't an opportunity, it was a weapon. Julian stared at the board behind her, still filled with the remnants of his perfect solution. The silence stretched. Then, "I'm in." The class exhaled collectively. Whispers erupted. Some students looked impressed. Others? Skeptical. But no one was indifferent anymore. Dr. Marchand gave a single nod, not approval, acknowledgement. 4 weeks, she said. "The symposium is in 4 weeks. You'll need to prepare." Julian nodded once. "Then I'd better start now." As he packed up his notebook at the end of class, the whispers turned to stares, to sideways glances, to respect or resentment. And somewhere in the front row, one student muttered under their breath, "He's either a genius or about to crash hard." But Julian didn't hear them. He was already out the door, already thinking about the next step. The campus library at night was a different world. Silent, unforgiving, filled with the soft hum of fluorescent lights and the quiet rustle of pages turning. In the farthest corner, by a window streaked with condensation, Julian sat surrounded by stacks of books, notebooks, and unfinished coffee cups. He had stopped keeping track of the time, or the days. He didn't just study, he dissected, he rewrote. He deconstructed theorems and reassembled them in ways most students wouldn't dare. The challenge had awakened something in him. It was no longer about Dr. Marchand, no longer about proving anyone wrong. Now, it was about proving something to himself. That talent, when fueled by relentless discipline, could break any ceiling placed above him. Outside the study halls, whispers grew louder. "He's trying too hard. No way he pulls this off. Dr. Marchand's going to destroy him." Some said it with pity, others with envy, a few with fear. Only one person came by to check on him. Brian, a senior known for his sarcasm and brutal honesty. He stopped by one evening, leaned against the bookshelf with a grin. "You know you're already ahead of half the grad students, right?" Julian didn't look up, just circled another step in his proof. "That's not enough." Brian chuckled. "It never is for people like you, is it?" He left him a fresh cup of coffee. Said nothing more. Night after night, Julian pushed deeper, solving problems designed to break even the most seasoned competitors. He mapped patterns in chaos. He turned formulas into stories in his mind, each with their own logic, flow, consequence. But it wasn't easy. There were nights when the equations blurred, when doubt crept in like a cold wind under the door, when he questioned if this had all been a mistake. And yet, every time he hit the wall, he climbed it. Every failure was another layer of armor. Every breakthrough, a breath of air in a room too tight. By the time the 4 weeks passed, Julian wasn't just ready, he was transformed. The auditorium at Northridge University buzzed with anticipation. Students, professors, researchers, all seated under dimmed lights, waiting for brilliance to unfold. Julian sat alone at a desk near center stage, facing the panel of judges under a digital timer that loomed like judgment itself. His palms were steady, his breath calm. He could feel the eyes, hundreds of them, locked on him, some expecting greatness, others hoping for collapse. And in the third row, sitting with her arms folded and expression unreadable, was Dr. Marchand. No nod, no smirk, just watching. "Begin," the lead judge announced. First round, mental math, no paper, no pen, pure calculation. Julian's eyes moved like a scanner, digits flickering in his mind as his fingers tapped answers faster than anyone else in the room. Second round, theoretical logic, prove, deconstruct, rebuild. While others scribbled frantically, Julian wrote with calm precision. Each line a deliberate move in a grand design only he could see. Then came the final round. The lights dimmed further. A single problem appeared on the screen. Brutal, layered, terrifying. A collective inhale swept the audience. Julian didn't flinch. He picked up his pen, broke the problem apart, found its rhythm, saw its flaw, and then saw the shortcut, not a trick. A truth hidden within chaos. He wrote, not quickly but precisely. Every symbol a strike, every calculation a quiet declaration. Across the room, his final competitor, an MIT doctoral candidate, struggled, sweating, rushing. Julian finished, boxed his answer, set the pen down. The timer buzzed. Silence. One judge rose, checked the work of both. Another minute passed, then another. Finally. The winner of the 2025 Winter Mathematics Symposium is Julian Hale. Applause, gasps, even a few cheers. But Julian, he simply exhaled, quiet, still. He wasn't thinking about winning. He was thinking about everything it took to get here. As he walked off stage, his eyes briefly met Dr. Marchand's. She didn't smile, but she nodded. For the first time. No sarcasm, no dismissiveness, just respect. The next morning, when Julian walked into her lecture hall, the usual chill in the air was gone. She looked up as he took his seat. "Before we begin," she said to the class, "I'd like to acknowledge yesterday's results. Julian Hale took first place against the top mathematical minds in the country." No fanfare, but everyone understood the weight of her words. Julian didn't smile. He didn't need to. He had found something greater than praise. He had found his truth. So, here's the question. No textbook can answer. If you had Julian's talent, but lived in a world that constantly underestimated you, would you speak up or stay silent? What would you do if the price of truth was public humiliation? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. And if this story moved you, helped you see things differently, or simply made you think, help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers by hitting subscribe and turning on the bell. Your support fuels more stories that challenge minds and open hearts.